Hello and welcome everyone to the design talk for Philips One toothbrush. So Philips One is a battery-powered toothbrush that is designed to bridge the gap between our traditional Sonicare toothbrush and the manual toothbrush. And as you can see here, some of the features of the Philips One, we have a version with the battery-powered version, and then we have a USB reusable toothbrush with reusable battery. And Philips One comes with various colors that is particularly targeted to the Gen Z generation. But before I go any, okay, here's the some of another view of the colors. And before I go any deeper into explaining what Philips One is, I would like to first of all introduce myself. So who am I? My name is Sean Choi, and I am a industrial designer, experienced designer based in Bothell, United States, as part of the Philips oral healthcare team. I'm designing mainly the power toothbrush range for Sonicare. And I started my career as a camera designer for a company called Samsung in Seoul, Korea. And then I worked for Philips in Hong Kong, designing like audio products mainly. As you can see here, some of the connected audios that I worked on before. And then I moved into United States, and I worked as a designer for the aviation industry, where I designed a couple of interior projects and seats for aircrafts. And here's one example that I designed a couple of years ago when I was working for the aviation industry. It's a business class seat. And then I worked for a design studio downtown Seattle called Artifact. And here is some of the work that I did for Lytro, which is now bought by Google. This is a cinematic movie camera for movie industry. So let's start to go into the Philips One project itself. When I started this project, there were two main tasks that were given to me. And the first task was apparently the manual to power conversion. So of all the people that use manual toothbrush, only a very not too many people have plans to move into the power toothbrush. So the idea of this product was to sort of bridge the gap between the manual toothbrush users to power toothbrush. So it will be easier for them to sort of ease them into this category. And because turning a manual toothbrush user into a power toothbrush user, it's a task that requires behavioral change for the consumer. So one thing that was pretty important during the design process was to use the experience flow for the consumer. So these are some of the work that we did, but also a lot of them was work that was done before in the oral healthcare. So we don't have to create every single workflow, but we sort of build onto the existing workflow. So based on the studies that we did before, we typically put this onto the board and start, investigating, taking a deeper look at how people use the toothbrush. And then when we discover something new for this particular project, we start adding more pictures into it to sort of have a better understanding. And if I sort of dive in a little bit into the detail, these are some of the findings that we've noticed from the past studies. And if just to mention a few, one thing that was often mentioned is the lack of storage space. And then the convenience, because when you bring in a power toothbrush into the bathroom environment, first of all, you need to have a dedicated space where you need to plug in the charger, and every time you use it, you have to pull it out of the charger and then apply toothpaste. And we've also learned from the studies that some people even remove the brush head. So in the morning, it will be typically a person goes into the bathroom, pull out the handle from the charger, get the toothbrush, plug it in, and then apply toothpaste and then start brushing. So some of the comment that we often came across was that some users would not bother using power toothbrush in the morning. So because of the lack of time, and also they have to prepare their younger ones too. So in the morning, they would just grab their manual toothbrush, brush really quick, and then go to work, come back in the afternoon or in the evening, and use the power toothbrush only in the evening. So that was one of the pain points that we have discovered. And another thing, just going back to the storage space, there were a lot of comments about storage space. But before as I have mentioned, I have worked at Hong Kong before coming to the United States. And it's quite interesting because in Hong Kong, the space in bathroom is very limited. And I don't think that's just limited to Hong Kong, but in general in Asia. I'm also originally from South Korea, and there too, you hardly have any space inside a bathroom to place your toothbrush and plug it in. So what I heard typically people do is sometimes they leave the toothbrush and the charger in the living room where they charge it, and they only take it into the bathroom before they start brushing. So there is an inconvenience there. So if you walk into the bathroom without a toothbrush, they will just, instead of going out to grab it again, they will just use the manual toothbrush for that day and not use the power toothbrush. So the storage space inside the bathroom was one of the biggest pain point that we have discovered. And another thing is, especially for younger kids, parents will only let the kids use the power toothbrush after they are certain that the kids are ready to use the power toothbrush, or they are already familiar with the manual toothbrush. Then they will start considering going to the power toothbrush. So those were some of the discovery, the points. And the second task that was given to us, to the team, was to create a unique and ownable design. So as you can see here, Philips One is not the first battery powered toothbrush in the market. We had this for many years, and here in the United States there are even I would call it not power toothbrush, but battery powered toothbrush with a battery that is not replaceable. So it has probably a triple double A size battery in it. People use it, and when the battery is dead, they just throw it away and buy a new one. So these type of category already existed on the market. But what we had seen more recently is product like this on the picture, a battery powered toothbrush where you can either charge or replace the battery. And this category was really growing rapidly. So what we had to do is we had to design a product that will clearly differentiate ourselves, not only from the user perspective, user experience perspective, but also aesthetically. We wanted to create a unique and ownable design to stand out in the market, which was another big task that was given to us. And as for the design process, I don't work alone, so I work with a whole team. They were the Philips One team. I was the lead industrial designer. So as a team, we started a co-creation session, and during this session, we would typically pull in not only industrial designers or experienced designers, but also packaging designers and UI designers, and also CMF designers to sort of work together to brainstorm. And if necessary, sometimes when necessary, we even bring in design engineers to sort of understand what the constraints are, and also to sort of find out what is the latest technology that is available in the market. So here are some pictures of us doing the brainstorming session with the images that we have found. We posted onto the wall and we start creating mood boards. And at this point, we not only look at the existing toothbrushes internal architecture to make sure that it will fit into the design, but also we look into the CMF, like color, material, and finishing, and the textures, and like something really big to very small. So here are some sketches that we did during the brainstorming. This is to do with the button layout and also the grip study. And here you can see at the bottom where you have the rounded bottom on the tooth like a handle. This idea also came up during the brainstorming session because what is really interesting is if you look at manual toothbrushes, they were never designed to stand upright in your bathroom countertop. They are always sitting like lying on its back instead of staying like standing vertically on a countertop. And this is so because the first power toothbrush that was designed by not Philips, but in general, had a charger, and therefore it had to stand up. And when you have a battery powered toothbrush, there's no longer a need for it to stand up vertically. But what is interesting is the followers, like a lot of follower brands, sort of benchmark the market leader, which is Sonicare and sometimes Oral-B, and just look at our existing toothbrush, and for some reason they just make it stand up for for a reason where I don't really think is necessary. So we revisited it, and while we were looking at the design of the Philips One, although I sort of like introduced the bench, like not the benchmark, but the competitive landscape. We did the study, but then we sort of took a step back and we really looked at the manual toothbrush as our manual competitor, like a main competitor, not the competitor's product. So we looked at how people use the manual toothbrush, how it is situated inside a house, how it's kept, and how they use it, and also everything about manual toothbrush. And because of that, we were pretty confident that moving away from a flat bottom so that the handle sort of lies flat on the countertop will work. And this is the direction we went for this design. And here are some of the initial design concepts that we worked on. And once we have the rough idea of how the design will look like, we start CAD modeling. I think in the old days, we spent a lot of time sketching and presenting sketches, but in the more recently, we go straight into CAD modeling with the internal architecture, which really helps us not only speed up the process, but also it makes with such a small product, we have to create an envelope around the drivetrain and the internal components, and it is really important that we sort of simulate how it's going to fit into the tight space to make sure that we don't create a beautiful design and later on says, oh, in order to do this design, it has to grow by how many millimeters, and you have something that is totally not looking like what it was originally intended. So what we do is we get the internal guts or the components and we start creating the outer housing to make sure everything works. And here we also immediately go into 3D printing to test the physical samples. As you can see here, what we did is the first initial idea, the travel case. We did something very different from the existing travel case that we had, which was typically just a one-piece molded, box that you put your toothbrush in and then just close. We created this concept, and the nickname of this concept during the process was called Canoe because it looks like a canoe. The idea was that we made it really simple so that the toothbrush goes like belly down onto the travel case to protect not only the buttons from getting activated, but also to protect the bristle. And one interesting thing that we also learned during the consumer study is that the travel case is really nice to have, but it is big and it's kind of bulky. So we call it the honeymoon period. When you buy a new product and your like consumers really excited about it, they will take the travel case and the handle wherever they go. But once that starts to wear off, in terms of when you're traveling, just looking at all the things that you have to carry during your travel, the unfortunately, I mean, not as I mean, we always focus on the toothbrushes, but for regular consumer, the priority of the toothbrush probably is not at the top of the list. Probably at the top of the list, you have your computer, your cell phone, and all that. So they have to carry charging devices for their, smart devices and so forth. So once their bag starts to get overpacked, I mean overloaded, what they do is they just put the toothbrush into their Ziploc bag and then sometimes just wrap it up with your like a cloth or something so that when you pull out the toothbrush, the brush head, there's a shaft and it's really pointy, so they just wrap that around so that it doesn't pierce into your Ziploc bag, and they put it into the Ziploc bag, put it tight, and then just throw it into the travel case. So the idea here is to make it as small and convenient as possible, so that we make sure that it always travels with the toothbrush. And here we already started exploring the idea where for the rechargeable version, you can charge the handle while it's sitting in the travel case with the USB-C charger from the bottom. And at this point, we also start investigating the CMF, which means color, material, and finishing. As I've mentioned earlier, we have a CMF designer, and we will base our color selection around the latest trends, but also not only trends, but also we look at how the logic of the side of it. So we look at the sales figure of colors that was sold before on other handles and see what sold well, what doesn't, and also we sort of try to balance the color mixture of something to have a very gender neutral color for the overall range. So we go through the color, material, finishing, and also we go through many different prototypes with the colors and without the colors, as you can see on the bottom lower right. And then once everything is ready, we present the final design to the stakeholders. And this is the design that we initially presented to the stakeholders. And the reception was very good, but there were some issues or some improvements that had to be made to the design as well. And to name a few, namely, one of them was that there were some concerns regarding the open travel case design. As you can see, we don't have a lid, so the bristle is protected by just placing the handle upside down or downside belly first into the travel case. But we have learned that many consumers had concern about it, thinking that the bristle will be not protected against gunk, and it will collect dust while they are traveling. And it was quite interesting because what we normally do is we will give existing competitor sample to our respondents and ask them to use the product from home, and then ask them to bring that into our test facilities, let them brush in front of us, and then we start asking questions. And it was often brought up that they don't like the fact that it has this open architecture. But what was really interesting, funny, when we were doing that study is that one person walked in and started mentioning about the bristle getting dirty and contaminated and all that. And then at the end of the discussion, that person just put their toothbrush into the bag without a travel case and went home. So there's clearly a gap between what people really do and what they actually say. But for us, it doesn't really matter. It's also like the perceived hygienic perspective is something that is really very important. So regardless of whether if this really works for us or not, it's a secondary question. If this is perceived as not hygienic, it's a problem that we need to address. So We went through the second round iteration and we came up with the final design, and then this design was presented back and everything was really well received, and this is how the final design is based off this design over here. So on the design update, one big update that we made was as we were putting the lid onto the travel case, we thought about a new way of approaching the travel case. Typically, travel cases are made of hard plastic, typically PP material, polypropylene, and it's hard plastic. But we thought, what if we make the travel case out of rubber? So a soft material, so that instead of making it into a hard armor shell that is designed like after the handle is designed to add on as an accessory, what if we design it so that it's like a jacket that you put on to yourself? So something that fits you very well, so that the two concepts, like the travel case and the handle, is not separated as an afterthought, but we think of the two design as one. So it's combining those two. And as you can see here, I have a little picture of Batman and Robin down there. The reason why I have this, you might be wondering, is that, as I have mentioned earlier, the second task that was given to us was to differentiate our design from the competition. And there are a lot of manual toothbrush based on not, powered, like a battery powered toothbrush out there in the market. That not only is small and nice in terms of design, but also some of them are pretty good in terms of the design. So how do we differentiate our handle from these type of handles that is already existing on the market? So I just take a metaphor of the superheroes. If you look at, I don't know if you guys are into the comic book, but if you look at superheroes, there are many different superheroes already out there. Some can fly, some have superpowers, some can have the lasers coming out from their eyes. But if you're trying to introduce a new superhero into the market, somebody has already taken that superpower. So how do you differentiate ourselves? And one thing that we came up with is the idea of having a sidekick like Batman and Robin, which will help us differentiate ourselves from the rest of the handles out there. So the idea what we were trying here with the travel case and the handle is a sidekick. So the travel case is a sidekick of the handle. So it's not a travel case that's designed after the handle was designed to add on as an accessory, but something that was designed together and fit perfectly together as like a person and a jacket that the person put on. And another task, going back to the first task of placing this in the bathroom environment, the idea here was to design something that doesn't need any installation inside the bathroom. So when you buy a power toothbrush and you bring it into the bathroom, first thing you have to do is you need to make space. You got to find out where you're going to plug it and all that. But here with a Philips One, we approached, the design was, as I've mentioned, we benchmarked manual toothbrush. So the idea is that you use whatever you had in the bathroom. So zero setup. You pull this out of your packaging, and you just take your manual toothbrush out of your bathroom and place it where your manual toothbrush was. Whether if that's the glass like this, or whether if you had a special holder in your mirror, you just take that out and replace that with this, and it's done. And you can start using it like a manual toothbrush. And another design feature that we have is for the charging version, we didn't use something special. We used USB-C, obviously, so that you can use anything, any other devices with the charger. So you don't have to go looking for your specialized charger every time you charge. You can just use any USB-C charger that is sitting inside your house. And another thing that we did is from the original Bristle, we added the lime green color filament, because during the consumer test, having a design like this with the tip of the Bristle being in different color, consumers thought that they will reach better into the crevices between your teeth better. So instead of having a one color toothbrush, we used what we were doing on other Sonicare, but in particular, we sort of designed this so that it has a colored tip, a brush head tip. And this also resonated very well with the consumer, and that was the design we went for. And the final design, as I've mentioned earlier, the concept where we were able to charge the handle while it's sitting inside the travel case is still there. So we can do this without taking the handle out of the travel case. So you can use your travel case while charging inside or your bathroom or in the countertop when you're traveling. And other detail that really matters is how you pull it out. We have also seen people pull the handle out of the travel case by grabbing the neck. And although you can do that, it's not really best in terms of user experience. So we designed it so that when you press the bottom of the handle, it will just naturally just pop up so that the consumer can pull out the handle out of the travel case without, grabbing by a neck and yanking it out. And then came the mass production phase. As you can see here, here's some of the design, with all the design ideas that we came up with and design intention. We sort of capture all those to start communicating with the people involved in for manufacturing. And as you can see here, we use a silicon like iPhone case to sort of convey our thoughts when it comes to the material of the travel case, because this was pretty new to the manufacturer, and they didn't understand the idea of having a soft material for travel case. So they kept asking whether it was hard plastic. So we had to do this, and you can see here the idea how we designed it. So when you press the bottom of the handle, it will pop up. So there's a little air pocket towards the bottom. And and we start using these to communicate with the vendors. And here are some prototypes that we created, 3D prototypes that is made out of soft material, but we also took the existing drivetrain, the components, and we made the 3D prints, and we made a working prototypes to start using for communication with the manufacturer. And here are loads of product parts that came. And this project started in 2020 March, so it was right before the pandemic started. So we were planning on traveling and all that, and suddenly this pandemic came in. So everything changed, and it was a bit of a anxiety moment there. But we all worked from home, and it worked. And because of that, my room is filled up with all these prototypes that I had been receiving throughout the whole year, the year 2020. And here's the final design. And these kind of renderings are not typically done by the industrial designer, but with a communication designer. So these are the designs, like the images that is created by the specialized team who create these for marketing purposes. And it's all like trying to show our this initial design idea for traveling, and also how it fits into the bathroom. And then finally, this is one of the packaging design that we did for the non-charging version. And and here that brings us to the end of the presentation, and I will hand this over to the Q&A session. Thank you so much.
Thank you for sharing this great journey with us, and how your team the value space between manual brushing and power brushing. That's really super interesting to hear. Mm-hmm. My name is Colette Forma, and I'll be moderating the Q&A session with Sean. We already have a few questions coming in, so that's a good starting point. If you have a question yourself, please feel free to drop it into the Q&A panel, and we'll make sure we get as many of those questions answered in this time slot. Sean, maybe to start, when preparing this session, you told me a fantastic story about your mom using the Philips One. Could you maybe tell that to the audience too?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Colette. So when the final product came out, I bought a few and then sent it over to my mother, who's still in South Korea, where I mentioned that the bathroom space is really small. And the feedback that I've gotten from my mother was really amazing, because she said she was using the regular Sonicare. She loves the cleaning power of the toothbrush and all that, but her one downside of it was that she often walks into the bathroom without the power toothbrush to realize that she has forgotten to take it in with her into the bathroom. And sometimes she goes into the bathroom to realize that the power toothbrush is run out of battery. So she was telling me that she loves the product because she can walk into the bathroom and just grab it like her manual toothbrush and start brushing. And that sort of like was a aha moment for me to really understand that our concept was working. But one thing interesting that I wanted to add is not that she gave good comments to this product, not because she's my mother, because my father, on the other hand, didn't really like it. He basically came back to me and said, this is not for him because it's not powerful enough. And which is a good indicator because I told him that, yeah, that is what it was for. And I think the Sonicare regular toothbrush is the one for him, and he's continuously using it, and he's very happy with it. And he uses Sonicare, sorry, not Sonicare, but the Philips one just for traveling, and I think it works for him as well. But yeah, it was an interesting feedback that I was getting from my parents, and that's yeah.
Thank you very much for sharing. That's really good to hear. Of course, there is a question about how much time did it take from kickoff to product launch, this project? Can you elaborate on that and also tell, because I know already, how did the team handle this?
Yeah, thank you. So in overall, the whole project took about, I think, about a year and a half. But as you know, industrial design or experience design will start before the actual project kicks off. So we started the concept stage, I believe it was like in 2019, mid 2019, and we finalized the concept towards the end of the year 2019. That was when, you know, those initial presentation was made. And then in 2020, we finalized the design, and the actual project itself kicked off sometime in, I believe it was sometime around March 2020. And that's when we were all planning the trip to China and Singapore, because part of our team was sitting and situated in Singapore and all that. And then the pandemic started. So it was a bit of a scary moment there, but things worked out, and our target was to release the product towards the end of the Q3 that year, like end of the year in 2020. So we had a pretty aggressive timeline. So the actual development took, I would say, slightly less than a year before we put it into the market.
Which is really impressive, I think. And you told us a little bit about the iterations you made. What was the moment that you thought, okay, this is it, this should be it?
Oh, so we made many different iterations, but I know that we can go on forever making iterations, but we have to sort of give ourselves a deadline. So we have to sort of backtrack from the schedule and say, give ourselves a deadline saying by this date, we have to come up with a final design. So by final design is not just the overall, you know, look and feel of the design, but it's also the small detail that matters. So we sort of give ourselves a deadline for that, and then we go through the iteration until we come to that moment where we have given ourselves. Of course, it's not like saying that we have to stop everything and be satisfied, take whatever we have, but we have to get everything right by that date to go through the iterations with the CAD modeling and like 3D prints and all that. And then what we'll do is we'll identify smaller issues. Like I said, you know, how we pull it out of the handle and, you know, the color of the bristle, you know, we go into the small detail, we list them all down, and we go through as a team, we tackle them one by one, like nailing them down before we finalize the design, so that once we have the final design, it's not only the beautiful aesthetic of it, but also, you know, I call it the lateral wow. So when people see a design, they say, wow, wow. But when they start using it and they realize that you have to press the bottom and it will naturally pop up. And, you know, when they see those little detail, those are the lateral wow that stays in the head of people user, not the first initial wow, I think. That's just my opinion. But so we spend a lot of time on those little details that matter before we put it into the market. So yeah. I don't know if that answered your question, but
I'm sure it did. Yeah, thanks for elaborating. Really, really good to hear. Another question. I think you touched upon it in your presentation at the beginning, at least. What made this project unique or different from the competitors in the same space? Can you expand on that?
Yes. So the first, visually, the difference that we went for is, as I touched base earlier, we wanted to make the design stand out because once you release a product into the market, first challenge that you have is to differentiate from the competition. But by differentiating, I mean in a good way, right? Like living in a cave is also differentiating yourself from other people. So we don't want that. So it has to look beautiful, but also something that we want to protect and own. So if there are other products that come into the market after we release the product and they start to look similar to ours, we should be able to protect our design. So therefore, having an ownable design was really, really important. So we came up with a design that is kind of new in the market, like the travel case idea is really new. And because the competition has spent a lot of time on the handle itself too, so they have all sorts of different design out there. And even if we create a beautiful design itself, is not going to be good enough to make ourselves stand out from the bunch. So this silicone travel case, like soft material travel case, is one of the biggest element that differentiates our handle from the competition. And also the patterns that we have on the handle is something that we did so that when consumer look at our product, they can immediately identify our design. And as you know, typically these days, people don't just go to the shop and take a look at the product and decide what they're going to buy. Very often people buy the product from online sales like Amazon. So they will see tiny little images on the screen. Of course, they can click it to blow up, but then once they blow up and they want to compare this with another product, they have to close the window, open the other one to see it, then trying to remember how the other one looks like. You know what I mean, right? So we wanted to make sure that the handle design itself looks distinctively different and immediately noticeable, even in tiny small images like thumbnail images online. So that was one of the biggest like the challenges that we wanted to tackle.
Nice to hear. Connected to that, where does the pattern come from?
The pattern is actually the swirl pattern is coming from. So as we have mentioned, we do like a trend study at the very beginning, and we have our sources on what the latest trending patterns are and all that. And I would say that the swirl pattern is not something that we have created, right? It has been existing in the market for many years. I've seen swirl patterns on water bottles sometimes, and sometimes on other products as well. I haven't seen it on a toothbrush, but on other products. So we typically look at all these patterns and study, and we decide what only the pattern that works best for our application. And during this type of the deciding of what pattern will go onto the handle, we have to also look at the factors where people use the toothbrush inside a bathroom where you have water and the residue from the toothpaste. So we have to make sure that these patterns doesn't end up becoming a gunk collector. So if you have like a diamond pattern and every single pattern ends up holding all these gunk from your toothpaste and turns white, then the design will only look nice inside a bathroom on day one, and then it will start look like a mess, right? So we had to also look at the practical factors for the patterns, and with all these elements, the factors considered, we decide on what pattern that we want to put onto the handle. Of course, we not only had the swirl pattern during the concept stage, we had many different prototypes with different patterns, like swirl and then cross swirl, even diamonds and everything. And we came to the conclusion to go for this swirl pattern because it's not as complicated as other ones, but yet very noticeable.
Nice. So many things to take into consideration regarding the pattern, I hear.
Yeah. And so also the grip is also one of the factors too. When you grab it, you want this to be not too slippery as well, right? So yeah, a lot of things to consider for the pattern.
Okay, thanks for that. Could you tell us a bit more about the sustainability aspects you took into account in the design? So people are referring to the removable battery, which is a big win, of course, and also the blister pack. Can you share some of your thoughts around that?
So when we were approaching the design at first, it was only the battery powered one. So we wanted to have a handle that has a replaceable battery, which will last for 3 months. But then we also had a big question mark on when it comes to the environmental factor. So this is part of the reason why we pushed for the rechargeable version, where you use the USB-C cable. And this one, you don't have to deal with the battery that you have to discard after 3 months and so forth. So this is part of the reason why we pushed for the rechargeable version, which came in introduced together. And another small factor is that I don't know if it is available in other countries, but in US there's a company called, I mean of course you know Oral-B, but there's a product called Click, which is a manual toothbrush that is designed so that you can replace the brush head only. So on their webpage, they claim that they save like 60% of plastic waste, because you don't have to throw away the whole thing. You just discard the tip of the brush head, and then the handle is reusable, as long as you want to use it. And this is how they approach the sustainability aspect of the toothbrush. And I think Philips One is pretty much the same in terms of similar, I would say, because as I have mentioned, it is a direct competition to the manual toothbrush. So unlike our regular toothbrush, you have to use it like your manual toothbrush, which means you have to scrub and brush as you would on a manual toothbrush with the motor supporting it, right? So it is almost like a manual toothbrush plus a additional cleaning efficacy. So you can almost see this as a manual toothbrush where you don't have to throw away the whole handle. You can keep using the handle, but just replacing the brush head. So I believe that is also going to support the sort of like reducing plastic waste, comparing to using your manual toothbrush that you have to throw away every couple of months, regardless of whether you like the design versus not. Mm-hmm. And then for the packaging, we used paper, but the biggest idea here was that we wanted to reduce, like typically when you buy a typical packaging, you have the outer box, and inside you pull out a pulp packaging, and you have like papers in it and all that, with a plastic wrap and all these for regulatory issues, and also to protect our product from damaging while shipping. Here we are still using plastic blister, but we try to minimize the size to begin with, so it's not a huge box anymore, and inside is simple. You cut it off, and there's no plastic vinyl wrap and everything. It's just you cut it off and that's it, But we did take a slight approach with the rechargeable one, which is slightly bigger because of the components. The cable has to be provided and all that, but still that was the same theme that we carried over on this. But I hope that one day we'll reduce the use of plastic further from where we are. But I think this is like another little step forward from the the typical consumer electronics, packaging that we see, that we have a lot of layers of papers and plastic inside that goes immediately into the trash bin after you unpack the product.
Right. Thanks for clarifying, Sean. Mm-hmm. A question around the journey. Usually the journey from the final design to engineering is sometimes difficult due to all kinds of things, for example, cost. Did you face any of such challenges? And if so, what changes did you have to make in the design?
Yeah, of course, cost is always an issue. But as an industrial designer, what we do is we try to be very clear upfront when we propose the initial design. And we try to prevent ourselves from coming to a situation where we have to change our design because of cost as much as possible. Well, the metaphor I often use is when you design a rabbit, right? You want that product to go into the market like a rabbit, but if you design the rabbit and then because of the cost issue, you have to cut the ear short and cut the rear leg short, and then you create this animal with short ears and short legs, but everything else looks like a rabbit, then you start wondering, what is this, right? Is this, what kind of animal is this, right? You have lost everything on the way. And this is one thing, it's the worst nightmare for a product designer. So we try to avoid this situation upfront. So what we not only just design, but we also do a lot of cost breakdown benchmarking from existing product to make sure that we are within the cost budget, and we propose something within that budget to make sure that whatever changes come later doesn't become a crucial change that will kill the design idea, like making the ears of the rabbit shorter, but maybe it's a rabbit with shorter hair, maybe, or a different color. Those are something that we try our best to keep. But then again, we had a lot of challenges during the manufacturing because the handle was the easier part. The only trouble with the handle was the swirl pattern of the drag, the draft angle. But this is something that we deal with on every single product, so not such a big issue. But the travel case, the soft material was something we've never done before. So we had warpage issue and we had flow issue. We had like issues until last minute, and that was a really there were a lot of anxiety moments there. But we worked toward it, and we had confidence that every single sample was getting better, and we were addressing the issue. So this is where I had to work really hard with not only the mechanical engineer but the vendors. And we had I moved the mechanical engineer because of the COVID situation. We had meetings in my driveway like every day, like talking about samples to make sure that we discuss about the flaws that we see and sort of create the list to improve for the next round, making sure that it goes into the market without all those flaws. Yeah, and of course there are some little compromises that we had to do. So if you look at the travel case, there's like a hole on the bottom because of the manufacturing reason, but we sort of use that like a shortcoming. We use that as a drainage. So when you have a travel case, you pour water in it, the water has to run down. We only had one hole on the bottom, but when we had this manufacturing issue, we decided to use another hole that was needed for manufacturing as a drain hole on the other side of the travel case. So it doesn't look like a last minute hole that you had to punch on, but it looks like it was intentional, and it serves a purpose for the usability as well.
Thank you so much, Sean. You already mentioned some of the key learnings and aha moments during the development. What I would be curious to hear, do you have, you're a seasoned designer, do you have any personal learnings here as well? What stood out for you in the development of this product?
I think I am really inspired when I talk to consumers. So as within the design team, we have different opinions and we have to work around ideas, and we spend a lot of time debating, what is right, what is wrong, and we sort of like use whatever material is out there to sort of judge our decisions and all that. But then when we were doing the consumer the test, we showed I'm like sitting behind the glass door, and when we present the mock-ups and rendering for the first time to the consumer, and the moment when I hear back from their reaction is really the mind-breaking moment, like the mind-opening moment, because I've done many consumer tests before, and there were cases where they were just saying bad things about my design. It's not with this product, but before, when I was doing speakers, they walked in and they started like saying bad things about design. They were talking about aliens and like all sorts of weird things, and to the point where the facilitator had to like stop the consumers, like respondents, from to go into the next topic. But when I hear from them like asking, oh, when can I buy this, right? That's when they are really excited to see the product and they want to really they are really eager to buy the product, that's when I really feel like that's really like the aha moment for myself, and also the moment where I feel like I want to go back and design more. You know,
Yeah,
it's
make you
it's a
eager.
motivating moment. Yeah, eager to do more, and it never changes. No matter whichever product it is, the best reaction that you get from consumer is usually, when can I buy it?
Well, that's
Yeah.
a good bridge to the last question, I think. So I think I'm sure there are a lot of people in the audience as well that think the same. So can you tell us something about where Philips One is available already, and yeah, could we buy it indeed?
Um, I am not 100% sure on where it is currently available on the market, because it changes, like, quite frequently, but for sure it's available in the US, and we are launching it in Japan. We were preparing some like a launch, event in Japan. And it's going into Asia in general, like Japan, Korea, and China as well. And I believe that is available in Europe, in some markets as well. But I think it's slowly going to expand. But I do believe that Europe is more concerned about sustainability. So the rechargeable version will be the main one that will be sold in Europe, as my understanding reaches. Yeah.
Well, looking forward, definitely. Thank you very much, Sean. If you would be so kind to press the next slide, because I think you might have inspired people based on your story to explore a career at Philips Experience Design. And if that's the case, then just scan the QR code and sign up for the talent pool, and you'll be on top of every role that comes available in our team. Looking forward, of course, to hearing from you. Sean, thank you very much for the detailed insight in the design and development process of Philips One. Really interesting. And personally, I really can't wait to buy one. So yeah, I'll be exploring that. Thank you to all attendees for participating in this session and dropping your questions. If you like to see more design talks, we still have 2 tomorrow. So just register on the website and hope to see you there. For now, this is it. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Sean. See you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you for joining the Design Talk.
Bye-bye.
Bye.